I changed the text, now it says curl dev. And actually I had another problem here too, that my stupid obs crashes when I try to switch. So I try to switch to my scene collection, because I have different scene collections for my well, live coding things and for my just this release presentation stream. So right now I figured you could just bear with me and I will add something here. Emacs and term. Okay, hang on here. I'm gonna bring my audio. Hello, hello. And there, and I'm gonna bring my camera. Boom. Hello. Okay, and then I'm going to do. I got a lot of questions about my programming setup. I think it's because people are not really used to Emacs and stuff. So okay, here's nothing, and let me add a window. Here's Emacs. So let me just make sure that there it is. Yeah, that's Simon Stollenhag, is a Swedish artist. So yeah, I have a few images of him. So I'll just shrink myself down there. Okay, so here's my Emacs, and if you've seen me develop, I usually also build curl from within Emacs like this. So that's how I build it, and then I usually also have a terminal. So let me get the terminal out here. I just need to make sure that I can see. So so let's add here another window. Go ahead and make fun of Emacs if you want. I don't care. So so do you think I should I have the mountains in the background as well? Maybe I should. So I have these silly mountains here, like that. Okay. Okay, so when I usually when I start with a new release, I start out bumping the release number, release version. Yeah, that let me show you that now when it's not a release stream anymore. where was it? Stack Overflow. I answered this. Where is it? I'm not used to seeing it like this. Yeah, that's the question I answered yesterday. It got some attention. Well, mostly because I tweeted about it, of course, because I thought it was. I thought I found that question. It was 5 years old and there was no answer. So I answered it, and the guy immediately downvoted the answer and said I hadn't understood it. And he also claimed that the Chrome was fixed, and maybe I didn't understand it. Maybe I'm just wrong. But yeah. Anyway, where were we? I'm going to do this. I'm going to start over. I'm going to start over the release notes. Okay, so this is going to be. I usually do just bump the patch number immediately because I'm not sure where this will go. Maybe it'll be patch, maybe it'll be version change. So start out looking towards 771.2. So if I build that, yeah, as you can see, I also build it in my terminal. And I have an alias for building it in my terminal, alias B to build it. And it saves me several key presses. No, it's actually it actually runs like this, so it specifies the directory as well. So whatever I stand in my terminal, it'll build in the correct directory. And if I check that version number, it says the correct version number up here. So and I go with that commit message for release notes out of a reason, and that's because I have another trick in my sleeve called git latest, which is a alias for myself that then shows everything in git since my latest release notes synced. And so there's nothing from the last sync, so I'm going to do that. So push that, boom. And if you would be in the curl IRC channel now, you would see that it'll say that in the channel. Boom. It actually says that in the IRC channel. So the IRC channel being, of course, where we hang around all day chatting along about curl stuff. It's called curl, well, pound curl, hash curl on Freenode. So it's okay. Then started we started over, so we're on a fresh start here. So back to, I'm a little bit annoyed that all my setup in OBS, my streaming program here, just vanished. So I have to stuck with creating everything new. So I believe the first bug is fixed. I'm gonna close that as soon as the person has verified that. This is marked as not a bug. I don't think it's a difficult situation. It's a bug on Android on a several versions old curl. The person cannot reproduce it outside of Android. Difficult. This is a complicated thing for mail. Maybe I should start on that. This is possibly an Nginx bug. Here's a e-tag problem being worked on already. Hi random person. Maybe I should add the Twitch chat to the video stream, but not now. There's too much fiddling. Yeah, right. So we're working on that e-tags problem, or Nicholas is working on it. So there's a ongoing pull request for that. The problem here is actually that when a server sends a badly formatted e-tag, that curl will actually return an error instead of continuing and just ignoring the error. So it's a bit of a, it is a bug, but it's also a bad server there. But it's going to be fixed. And then we have another thing with curl with S channel and the client certificates and the complicated issue. It's already mentioned in known bugs, or is it to do? Here's another build problem reported. I'm still waiting for more feedback on that. The person says he can't build curl with OpenSSL in a outside system directories, he says, which is interesting because I can, and we build with WolfSSL in a custom directory in the CIs as well, so it's obviously it works in several places at least. Connection takes a long time to get closed. What is that? Oh yeah, it's a mystery bug. It's been an ongoing discussion here. It's issue 5604, so if you want to read up on it, it's basically a server that sometimes doesn't close the connection when curl talks to it. Well, it takes a long time for it to close the connection, and the reporter tried different tools against the server. They tried it with wget and SoapUI, I think, and in both those tools they close the connection themselves, which curl doesn't do for reasons, because curl can't do that. It wants the entire response and it shouldn't close it early, but those other tools do. Blah blah blah, really complicated. I blame the server. Difficult. Transfer encoding chunked, forced, yeah. Closing, working as expected. So if you do a post with curl and you ask for HTTP 1.0 and you don't set the size of the post, then curl will return an error. It didn't in the past. In the past it would actually send that post as a more or less broken post, because servers don't want them to appear like that. because you're supposed to set the post field size, which then includes the size in the post, so that the server knows the size of the post. That's what you do with HTTP 1.0. In HTTP 1.1, you could do a post without a size, and it would then post it chunked and coded, so you don't have to set the size beforehand up front. It'll just figure it out along the way anyway. And that works with curl as well. So this user who reported this bug noticed that previously in older curl you could do this wrong post and you could add the content length header yourself and it would do a fine post. Now you can't do that. Now it'll still return an error because it needs the size, and if you don't pass in the size, it'll return an error in this case. I actually added a test case now that verifies that we actually behave as I say here. Set the size with the API and not behind the back of curl. Blah 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 blah. Here's an interesting bug that I haven't really worked on yet, at least. So there's apparently a risk if you set the timeout, these timeout options, to a value that is long max or very close to long max. That is an extremely large timeout value. Well, on a 32-bit system, if you specified it as milliseconds, it might not be extremely large, but still 50 days or so in milliseconds. That's still a long timeout. And if you do that, there's actually a risk that there's an integer overflow somewhere that will wrap and it'll show timeout reached. But of course we didn't reach the timeout because it's ridiculously long. I've not prioritized this bug fix because it seems like a pretty rare case that you would set such a timeout, and it's not that easy to reproduce either. I tried to reproduce it exactly as mentioned in this description, but I failed. So it's certainly obviously timing thing here to make sure that it times exactly the correct way to trigger it. So we'll see. Still such a rare bug, so I've actually tried to figure out and ask the guy who reported it why he wants to set the timeout like that. I've also considered just lowering the maximum timeout value to avoid the issue, but curl fails to support Brotli. Presumably curl works as expected. Closing. This was really not a curl issue. This was an issue with, you know, how people sometimes they build curl, install it, and when they run it, they it turns out that they well, they used the new curl binary, for example, with the older libcurl installation, because for some reason they installed your own custom build in a new directory that won't be found by the linker at runtime and so on. So this was another one of those cases. So it's more of a issue with how to configure your runtime linker and LDSO conf and so on Linux, not a Linux, not a curl bug. So yeah, you should really hang out in the curl IRC if you're a curl fan and just enthusiast or whatever, because we're a bunch of curl hackers and developers and contributors hanging out in the IRC channel most of the time, most of the days. On and off, idling, coming back, talking, chit-chatting. So consider that. More bugs. Too many calls to curl now. I'm thinking of dropping that bug. I filed it because it came from a discussion on the mailing list that we're calling on a Linux. You can see that we do calls to get time of day quite often when you do curl request or curl transfer, or very often. So I filed it, and I actually made a stab at reducing the number of calls to get time of day, but it's complicated, a bit error prone, and on modern Linux systems, calling get time of day is a really fast operation. So I'm not sure I can. Yeah, if you join the chat, the curl IRC chat, you need to read the topic. You need to register with Nixer, and it's a little bit complicated, but it's an anti-spam measurement because there are a lot of annoying bots there sometimes that come flooding the channels. So if you're registered, it's just a little mechanism to make sure that you're actually a human and not a bot. You can just Google register Nixer Freenode and follow those steps. And here's a fun one. SMTP sessions. I actually refer to documentation here that it's this claimed bug is actually working as expected. Maybe not as we would like it, but it certainly is documented. So I think we can leave it. There's a room for improvement there. So basically, when you send an SMTP, when that is an email, you're supposed to end the email with what they call full stop, which is just a sort of a period on a single line on itself. And when you send email with curl over SMTP, you have to add that full stop in the body yourself that you're sending with curl. Curl won't add that full stop by itself, which is a bit of a inconvenience and possibly unexpected, but still that's how it works, and it is documented. So yes, if you want to join the IRC channel, read up on how to register your nickname, because unfortunately we need to. Well, I think we need to. During certain times, we've certainly been forced to have that mechanism in place because IRC can be a rough environment and very prone to annoying bots at times. Works as documented. Could of course be enhanced. Close. So basically, I guess this turns out to be Daniel Close's issues stream. While using curl up timer function, it is not retrying on timeout. So it's been 45 days. I'm closing. And then we're going down into the more rat hole-like bugs that are forever. They're they're basically older and more nasty ones. I should get started on some of them. Another fun thing to do is to switch to this document. We have the known bugs document. So if you look at this, you can see quite a long list. Here's the known issues. And there's also the to-do document, which is listing things we could do in curl. So if you're interested in finding out something to contribute to curl, here are a few ideas. Quite a lot of them. Some of them complicated, some of them maybe not a good idea anymore, and some of them still good ideas. Curl. Well, the question is that if curl supports .onion HTTPS. Yes, it does, but not automatically. So if you want to access a .onion or anything over Tor, really you need to specify the Tor socks proxy yourself. So if you just add the socks proxy info and you specify that to your Tor proxy, you can use .onion URLs. It's because .onion is just, that's just a name handled by Tor itself, right? So if you just like this, I can show you. I don't have Tor running here, but if you would do -x for the socks proxy, you would probably use socks 5h like this, localhost on some fun port 3333, and then do the funny name .onion, like file name, like that. I mean, it should work, and because the only thing that is Tor here is that socks proxy thing. It connects to the proxy, and it'll when you'd either use socks 5 or socks 4, but I think it does socks 5, and the h in this prefix here means that you ask the proxy to do the name resolving of the name. So in this case, then, if you would run your Tor on this port, Tor sort of gateway on this port number, you would ask Tor to resolve the host name, which is this misspelled funny name .onion. So then Tor would resolve the host name, and you would connect to that host name through that proxy and get it. So should work. I don't think I ever actually personally tried .onion hostname with curl, but there's nothing preventing it from working. You just have to do this manual setting the socks thing. We have a known issue. There's a known issue somewhere about us accepting the, if you do like this and you use, without a proxy, you do .onion, we will actually send that .onion to the name resolver function and possibly leak the information to someone somewhere that we're trying to resolve a .onion, which is there's an RFC that says we shouldn't do that, but it's also a complicated story. the reason why it's complicated is of course that when we're resolving a hostname, we don't know that it's actually the tld.onion. We just know that it's the name ends with .onion, which could also be a just a local hostname. So if we resolve this hostname, right, it could be the hostname, and then we would add my domain name to that hostname. Maybe because that's how the resolver does it, right? So by not allowing .onion as a trailing part of the name we resolve, we wouldn't be able to resolve the name if it would. So yeah. Basically, it means that if you're going to use .onion and Tor, use a proxy properly, and then it won't leak anything anywhere to anyone else. And by the way, Bitsynth in this chat says that only EV certs are allowed on .onion. It doesn't matter because EV, OV, DV, all those different certs for TLS, they're not visible to a client like curl. I mean, it doesn't matter. They're verified the exact same way, so there's no difference. So they only possibly make a difference to browsers, because at least they used to show them slightly differently when they were EV. That's going away too. An EV cert is not more trusted or secure than another cert. Well, possibly, maybe just a little bit. Going through my list again. Yeah, EV certs were potentially, supposedly, or maybe originally supposed to be more secure, extra verified, or whatever it stands for, the EV. But it turns out that it's not particularly more secure or certified than extended validation. Yeah, that's what it means. But it's not. It doesn't mean that much, that extended validation. It basically means, yeah, you need to have a company somewhere with that name, maybe. Okay. So let's try this bug. I'll show you this one, because I think I can write up a test case for this. So here's the thing. When you send an email with SMTP with curl, you can specify the from, the mail from option like this. And we broke it in this commit that tried to introduce, well, it introduced UTF-8 handling of the host name on that option, but it also broke existing use cases. So we can either just revert the commit completely and go back and not attempt to fix the UTF-8, or we can do some middle way to try to handle both. And my plan here is to do this second thing, to sort of detect this weird use case and just then go back to the older way of doing things. I think Yeah, that's the command line option, mail from. Maybe I should make it a little larger. I want to find other test cases that actually uses mail from already. See what I can. Here's one. SMTP send tunnel through HTTP proxy. It's a little bit too complicated. I want a simpler one. Okay, let's try with this. Curl speaks quite a lot of protocols. SMTP is one, and it's actually been supporting SMTP for quite some time. It's maybe not the most convenient protocol to do with curl, but it works, and there are a bunch of programs doing mail sending with curl with this. So okay, here's the make file with test cases. I'm going to add a new test case, 3008, based on the example 3002. So I'm going to create a new one here and replace 3002 with 3008 in the test case. So here's the new test case. SMTP with multiple and invalid blah blah blah. Now with funny mail from. I can work on the name. Let's do it like this first. SMTP. So here's what we send to it. Look, no terminating dot. Maybe we should have a terminating dot. It should be like this. Full stop. There, I think. Okay, so this is the URL we're passing into. Allow fails. We don't have to allow fails. We want a mail receipt. Just remove a lot of craft like this. Hello at example.com, mail from, and now we're going to use the example from the bug report. He used a string like this. So maybe I shouldn't, use his, oh well, smart LD username Entwicklungssystem. I agree that it looks invalid, but I'm not sure that it's it actually, I don't think it is invalid, but and it's also not, it worked because it worked to send emails like this before we changed our behavior. Mail from blah blah blah. So let's see what happens. Receipt to hello. Wait a minute. There's so I had it built already, and then to just run this particular test case, run 3000. Wait. Just want to make sure that I build the entire test suite as well. I'm getting to getting the hang of using -SJ6 so that I don't use all the cores, because then my video get all stuttery when I do this at the same time that I'm streaming. It's okay. Run 3008. Yes, I believe it's the font hack. And this more or less was expected to fail. Wait a minute. That looks like it worked, right? I'm a bit surprised. I thought this wouldn't work. I think that was that was the bug report was all about. Well, maybe it didn't. Maybe. But. Wait a minute. If I remove those, is that what happens? Okay, so what is this? Mail from, let me, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I have this little convenient thing. So if I want to run the test case with the debugger, I do this. And I want to make sure what happens. Mail from. Oh, right, it only stores it as mail. So there's no parsing when we set the option. It just stores it and then it'll use it later on. And mail from, here's the code. So I'm going to set a breakpoint there on that line. Break SMTP line 575 run. And here it is. Entwicklungssystem. Oh. I bet it's big. Maybe. Interesting. Trying to figure out how to reproduce that bug. I don't. So it's unbalanced. Oh, I think I did it wrong. Maybe it's just supposed to be like that. Ah, yes. I think that's how I reproduce it, because I don't think it wasn't using that initial bracket thing. That's that's what curl adds. So that's the mistake. Now I think I'm understanding this. Maybe. So it's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to not have the initial bracket thing. And there it is. If host name. Okay, okay. Breakpoint SMTP at line 622, run it. Wrong. Try again. Let's break at 57575. I've learned to do this GDB trick so that it actually looks slightly more fancy when I do the stream. So maybe you can follow along the code better when I single step through GDB. So UTF-8 there is false, which seems correct. It's not a UTF-8 name. So if host name, Well, I can't do this since I to get to GDB, I run the test suite, right? So I don't just invoke GDB. I invoke the test suite, and the test suite starts up a lot of things, and then run GDB on curl against the test case. So um, it's more complicated than that. I, so, so that's the command line it runs, for example. Uh, taking care of some notifications. Okay, so why does it do like this? I'm trying to understand her address. So I'm gonna go back and just take another. I mean, I could do this. I just want to get this commit hash. Blah 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 blah. And sometimes when I want to do this properly, so that you can see it, maybe I should. Oh well, actually, as I go completely nuts when I have to use LLDB. So I really LLDB, fine debugger, I'm sure, but every command is like just not GDB compliant, just slightly different. So every time I have to use LLDB, I have to look up for how do you do this? How do you do this GDB command in LLDB instead? And then I go crazy. And using GDB on Mac is also completely annoying. So I stay away from Macs. I stick to my Linux machines. A lot because of that LLDB thing and not being able to use GDB. And of course, all the other crazy stuff on the Mac. So no, I prefer a Linux machine for debugging, or for most things actually. Um, I think. Um, do, 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 do. I really think that when there's nothing to convert, it really should use the string as is. I don't know why. I don't think this is a good idea. I think this is the mistake here. And that's why I'm comparing with how we did it before. Then we just doesn't look correct either. I think I need to go back and ask the reporter. I'm trying to understand what curl did previously that worked for you. Maybe I should do a little. Let me do another screen here for the chat. Audio. Oops. Camera, and let me add a chat here. Window capture, chat. So there, the chat, ask away. So I don't have many reports on problems with building current curl on any platforms really. So I know you mentioned your build problems on FreeBSD, for example, but I don't recall us having changed anything particular that would break FreeBSD or any platform really. Possibly with the exception of wolfSSL that I modified recently, but that also works for me and in the CI, so I don't think it shouldn't be completely broken at least. Well, you can question them, sure, but it's still that's the way we verify that they actually build on those platforms. So that's certainly true at least. Then you can of course say that maybe you don't build that way, but at least it proves that they build on those platforms and they continue to build on them. Well, as long as the CI's builds are still working, which they aren't always, but okay. So I was gonna go here and ask a question. So sure, last minute, go ahead and do whatever you want to do, and if you have a reproducible problem or a problem that you run into, show it to me, us, and we can work on it. As I said, I don't think we've changed much in the configure and building things recently to explain any particular new build problems. Excellent. So Rush KIEB. So now, as stressful as being an open source maintainer, yeah, it's pretty much what you want it to be, I guess. I don't stress out much sort of as a person, so sure, it's a bit of a pain when I do things that upset people and that breaks things for everywhere, but usually it's just a lot of fun, and I get a lot of I think out of it, and I appreciate it, and I think it's awesome. But then of course people can be mean, and there's those issues and things. So yeah, you if you I would have a heartbeat monitor connected, you could see me not being particularly upset with pretty much anything because first I'm only a maintainer, right? I only do this sort of as a one person out of many. It's not I don't see it as my personal responsibility to make sure that 10 billion installations of curl is fine. It's up to uses everyone who uses curl and runs curl in their things. They actually have to be responsible for their own actions. I don't I don't feel responsible for that to that extent, but then of course I do everything I can to make sure that curl is good and reliable and solid and everything. And I think it's fun to run a project where uh, I like being a maintainer because then I can do what I want, and I could have my voice in how we should do things, and I could have my way of you know, producing software that I think is a good way to do it. So that is fun, and doing this as a I mean, this is my full-time job. I do curl full-time, right? I work all day with curl, and I spend spare time in my evenings on curl. So I do curl in weekends, I do curl at night. I do a lot of curl, and I do that of course because it's fun. I enjoy this, so I think I'm in a fortunate position. So I would happily be an open source maintainer for a long time. Yeah, at least that's how it feels like now. Maybe I will change at some point. Now you know that the curling thing is a Swedish word. So a curling parent, that's a Swedish metaphor. You don't say that in English. The English people don't know what a curling parent is. A curling parent in Swedish is a helicopter parent in English. That is a parent that takes care of their children a little bit too much, or sweeps away all their obstacles ahead of them. That's the curling metaphor. But sure, of course, I'm a curling parent. I'm probably a helicopter parent as well. I think you've seen my kids. They walk by here in the background every once in a while because they're having their summer vacation basically from school, so they're walking around the house. And I have this is my office or work area, and it's bedrooms from on both sides behind me. So basically, when people in my family want to go to their rooms, they have to go by me here. Yeah, I started the 1.5 hours ago, right? Yeah, and then I closed that stream and started another one. So this stream has only been going for I don't know, 1 hour. And I don't know. I don't know how you go from JavaScript to C. I think it's probably a pretty steep jump. Um, to get into C from JavaScript is a completely different paradigm. But then I don't know. I never learned C from a book myself. I just dove into it right on, wrote code, read mon pages, ran it, got seg faults, learned GDB. Well, actually it was before I had GDB and just used the debugger then. I learned C and debugging and compilers on AIX back in 1993, 4, 92. I don't know, somewhere. I'm talking too much. I'm not very productive here in fixing this bug. I'm sorry. I completely forget what I'm doing. So I don't only work in C. I do work in C primarily. So I basically, since curl is curl is 160,000 lines of code or so. I've Not everything is written by me. I do a lot of changes in curl. I do somewhere in a little bit over 50% of all changes I've written, certainly more than 50% of all lines of code. So yes, I do a lot of C. I prefer C. I stick to C. I do a lot of C. But then I do scripting. I usually do shell scripting or Perl or something else. I started my adventures in life or in computers 1985 on Commodore 64, and I did assembly. I did quite a lot of assembly on Commodore 64. You can look it up. We did demos under the name of Horizon back in the Commodore 64 days. So Horizon 64 demos. And then I did a little bit of on Amiga. I switched to C programming. I did a text editor on Amiga. And then I switched to Linux pretty much. I didn't switch to Linux. I switched to Unix because I started on Sun OS, Solaris, other Unixes until I found Linux basically, I think, late 90s. And since then I've pretty much been on Linux primarily. So no, I never do assembly. I did assembly on 64 and on Amiga. I've done 8086 assembly. I've done assembly on MIPS and ARM and other things as well, but only, occasionally, and only because I had to when I did it for work. I actually did 8086 assembly on a work thing working for Intel just maybe 10 years ago. That was fun. 16-bit assembly. So I'm trying to understand this bug. Looking at the previous behavior. Did this, then send the SMTP command. No, I don't think you should say hello. You should have said hello. Hello. SMTP. Right, you can do the extended halo, EHLO as well. I mean, we're looking at that code, right? It's I mean that source file. Hello, where is it? Hello. It must have been fun to come up with a. Well, hello was the original command, and then they invented the new version of it, and they just switched the first two letters. So yeah, interesting. Okay, well, I'm here writing this. Did this and this SMT command like this for you. Or what is the Okay, that's I fired away the question there, so I'm back on. I think I'm just gonna exit my debugging session for that. That my I'm gonna do like this. SMTP mail from, create a little branch here. I'm gonna add my new test 3008. Verify bug 5618 debug. I'm just saying, I'm writing this so that I don't accidentally think this is complete or done in any way. And Jesus, what I can't spell. There, rename the branch. There, I won't push it in anywhere yet, but I'll just keep it here in my. I have a lot of branches, so if I check my branches, I have a bunch of them. A lot of things going on in my local tree. No, we cannot fix the referrer typo. Well, I think the refer thing I actually haven't really figured out why or how it came to be there, but it was with us already in the first HTTP versions, and it won't be fixed. A lot of things in the protocol world is just stuck like that, like we did it back in the day. Okay, so I'll save that SMTP fix as well. I have some nasty bugs with curl going over HTTPS proxies, but I'm not really in a mood to dig into that right now. I think we have one FTP problem through HTTPS proxy and one SFTP problem through HTTPS proxy. And then there's this chunk of problems that we have that are specific to particular backends. For example, this. So here's a bug on curl when doing FTP list operation when you're well, this is it uses FTP SSL, so it switches to TLS, makes an FTP listing, and then it times out, it hangs, but only when built using Windows S channel, which of course makes it really hairy. And I don't do development on Windows myself. I don't even have any suitable Windows setup for this, so annoying and complicated. It's been without a response since April. Unfortunate, but yeah. If someone would pay me, I could get into that, but until someone pays me for that issue, I think I'm going to let someone else deal with it. So we're down to 34 open issues. Any requests for particular things we should take a look at? There's a lot of things. I can see that we increased activity in the IRC channel. I'm not really able to keep up the activity in my stream here, Twitch chat and IRC chat at the same time. So I'm going to end my little debugging section here because I don't have any. I'm going to just close the stream here, go and have a lunch and see what else I should do today. I have a presentation on HTTP3 next week that I'm going to have to go through and fix my slides for. I did a presentation yesterday. I didn't mention that before, right? On HTTP, no, sorry, on curl testing and curl testing for security. And that video should be up, I hope, today or later today or maybe tomorrow. So just if you follow me on Twitter or read my blog, you can get that video if you didn't see it yesterday. But sure, fire away. If you have a question, fire it away before I close this down. But as you know, I talk a lot of curl stuff on Twitter, if in case you're interested. That's actually most of what keeps me occupied during the days. That's what I work with. That's what I talk about. So yeah, I'm not very creative. I stick to my old habits. It's not a very quick question if you're taking this long to write it, you know. Yeah, Storebror is my local dev machine. So you can see the host name in my prompt. So if I look here, you can see the prompt here in my terminal. It says Daniel at Storebror. Storebror means big brother in Swedish. I think it's because I had a smaller machine once, so this was the bigger machine. So yeah, that's my local host name. So sorry, I didn't mean to be annoying. So about the question then, how you get started into program PLCs and big equipment. I don't know. I don't know how to get started in programming really. For me personally, whenever I want to get into anything like programming or getting into a project, it's just I want to solve a problem, I want to fix it, and I want to work on finding out how to do that. So for me, it would be a matter of I want to get this done, and then just read up on how you do that particular thing. And of course, that particular thing, starting in a new area, that would have to be a rather simple thing or a small thing, so that it would actually be doable. But if you're completely new to an area, it's also hard to know what's a small thing, what is doable, what is a good first thing to start with. So I don't think I'm the right guy to ask. I'm not. I don't know. People sometimes even ask me, how do you start with anything like C programming or getting into TCP/IP programming? And it's like I did this for so long time ago, and I did it basically all on my own, just being interested. Why did I choose Debian as my workstation? I use Debian everywhere on all my machines. I like Debian. I actually started out when my first Linux adventures back in late 90s. We started out installing some Red Hat stuff. I don't remember what versions. They restarted their versions after. That was long before Fedora existed. It was Red Hat Linux 3 or 2 or whatever it was called back then. But then one day I got tricked into trying out Debian instead, maybe early 2000s at some point, and I found it to be much more pleasant, in particular because I never do any reinstallations, just iterating, constantly updating, and I've just been accustomed to everything Debian. I've learned to fix things when they break, and I appreciate going with Debian Unstable. Everything is recent. It's fairly stable, even though it's called unstable, but I'm getting a lot of stuff new, and so I use Debian on my developer. This Storebror, this is my primary desktop development machine, but also on my my primary development laptop that's actually sitting here next to me on my table. So, and we run it on my primary server. So actually the primary curl server, it's a server for all sorts of stuff actually. It runs the mailing lists, it runs a bunch of different domains and servers and stuff. It also runs Debian. So I use Debian everywhere, and it's convenient to use the same base setup. So that's why. I have never found any reason to switch away from Debian, so I stick to it because it's good, reliable, fine. I also actually have a Windows machine next to me on my desk here, but I only do that because it's my video chat machine. So sometimes some of those video systems are just more reliable on Windows, like Skype or some other crap systems that just aren't good enough on Linux. But I never use that for anything else than video things. I don't develop on Windows ever. I have a VM somewhere with Windows, but I don't remember even where. I could also possibly add that I'm not involved in Debian in any way actually. So I'm not a Debian contributor other than that I'm writing curl, so I'm contributing to all Linux distros basically, but I'm not taking sides, and I'm not helping out with packaging curl, for example, for Debian or for any other Linux distro. I think I'm quite comfortable with I'm packaging curl and shipping it and to the same way for everyone, and then all the package maintainers, they grab the same release that I ship and they package them for their distros. So I know the Debian maintainer, I know the Red Hat maintainer, and I know a few other maintainers, but they're all they're on equal terms in relation to me and to the curl package. So I use the curl package on Debian actually sometimes. So if I go to my here and type curl, it shows that it's actually a Debian package here because it says 7.68.0, so it's actually slightly out of date. Alessandro, what are you doing? He used to be more keen on, he used to be more on track with the latest. I think he's slacking a bit since he switched work, and I know where he works now. But okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's exactly on the latest version. It's good enough, I think. And I can always just run my own build instead. That's more of the latest version. And if we do like this, I have a fun set of setup configure lines like this, so we can just rerun another configure line that does another configure variation, and in this case I enable ngTCP2 in the build. So if it finds it properly in the end, blah 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 blah. Configure is pretty much what takes the longest time when I build curl. So it says here HTTP3 enabled, and then if I build that setup, the file names are almost sorted alphabetically now in the make files. You can see them built in alphabetical order, almost. So now with this build it's a slightly longer feature list actually, but now it says HTTP3 in there. So now we can do HTTP3. What do you want to get HTTP3? Want to try something fancy? Facebook.com. Boom. get rid of the output and let's see what happened. There, see? Facebook over HTTP3. I think it's kind of fun that they actually run their production site on HTTP3 now. You can also get Instagram. Maybe not. There you could www.instagram.com. You can get over HTTP3. Let me see what Google does. No, Google, not on the W. That worked. So google.com works. So a few of those big ones. Cloudflare also blogged, I think, yesterday how to enable HTTP3. So if you run your things on Cloudflare, you can actually enable HTTP3 there, and then HTTP3 should work with your sites on Cloudflare with curl. And actually with all browsers right now, if you just run the latest development versions of them. Even Safari these days, since a few days back. Okay, I'm gonna take lunch and then work on my slides a little bit for my presentation next week. I'm talking at a conference called DevOps out of Russia, but it's done completely digital, of course, so online. So I'm going to do it from remote from here. But still, I'm going to do a 1 hour talk on HTTP3 and quick with a Q&A session afterwards. So I should just refresh all my slides and everything. HTTP3 is a working group last call state learn, so it could be done any year now. Okay, fun to meet you all, and my stream setup is a bit basic and not the way I wanted it to be, but anyway, I blame my lack of preparation. Well, see you all. Have fun, everyone. Bye.